for 6 p.m. Wednesday, December 13th. Let's start with the roll call, please.
Wilson. Boers.
Here.
Bowman.
Here.
Nixon.
Here.
Stevens. And Chair West.
Present. First item of business is the consent agenda. We'll entertain a motion on that unless there's further discussion needed on any of those items.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, let's vote, please.
Wilson. Boers.
Yes.
Stevens. West.
Yes.
Nixon.
Yes.
And item number 2, we'll pull. Item number 3, I believe there's a request for a continuance. There's some additional information that needs to be gone over with the applicant and ironed out before we hear that. So could we hear a motion on item number 3, please? I will. I will move to move agenda item number 3, the preliminary plat for 121st and Elm Complex, to the next regularly scheduled meeting.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's vote, please.
Boers.
Yes.
Bowman.
Yes.
Nixon.
Yes.
And West.
Yes. Agenda item number 4 is JZ 23 PUD 147. It's a request by Natalie Cornett for a planned unit development to allow for residential and office uses, general location of 322 West B Street. Mrs. Hilton, please.
Thank you, Chair West and Planning Commissioners. This address is 332 West B Street, and it is on the south side of B and on the east side of Cedar. The property was and still is part of the Jenks original town plat. The first structure was built in 1915, and currently there are 3 structures on the lots. And so we're talking about lots 7 through 12 of Block 51 of original town Jenks. And there is a residential structure. It was white. It's recently been painted a lovely sage green. And it will remain a residential structure. And then further east to that is what looks like a home as well and has been used as an office for years, which would technically be a non-conforming use. And the applicant said, let's clean all of this up. I said, great, let's do it. And that one will remain an office use. And then the third structure, this is page 71. And thank you, Tara. This is not Tara's job. She is in the finance department. And she was so kind to fill in for Brandon tonight. So we'll give her lots of grace. And I definitely don't like to drive and talk, so thank you, Tara. The third structure is a row of self-storage, or in the old days, we called it mini storage, and it's been there for I don't even know how long. It's probably how they got the commercial heavy zoning and how they got to do so many different uses on the lot. That would ultimately go away if this item is approved. And what they are proposing is to take that location of the self-storage and put 4 apartments on the property. So they are keeping the commercial heavy zoning, which is now a legacy district. So when we updated the zoning code, we did away with commercial heavy. And any uses or bulk and area standards refer to commercial general in the code. So the underlying zoning would refer to commercial general. The overlay would be PUD 147, and the PUD 147 would allow for all the uses I just laid out. It would allow for a continuation of the home as a house, for the continuation of the office as an office, and for the addition of 4 apartments adjacent to the alley with alley access. If you look on page 72, you'll see the comprehensive plan calls out high-intensity, single-family residential, and they would be in compliance with that. If you look on page 73, there's a zoning map. Thank you. And you'll see the commercial heavy zoning there. This site would not require platting, but of course, during the new construction of the apartments, if this item is approved, they would have to go through all the full engineering for the site, which would be making sure they have utilities, et cetera. But there is no replat required. Below that is the bulk and area standards. There's a column for commercial general, and then there's a column for PUD 147, and then there's also residential multifamily. Kind of just gives you a little bit of comparison of what it could be, but versus what it is. Sorry about my little cough this evening. If you look on page 74 down at the bottom, starts the non-residential district uses, and it shows per the PUD and per commercial general what would be allowed. And page 77 are a couple of street views from Google that shows what is currently there. You can see the large residential house that's white, 2-story, and then the little cottage-looking office. And then the very last photo is the existing metal structure that has been used and rented out for self-storage. Staff does recommend approval of JZ 23 PUD 147 to add a restrictive overlay to the commercial heavy legacy district zoning. If you look on page 80, starts the actual PUD document, and the whole acreage is about half an acre. On page 83, it shows the development concept. You're going to see that same chart on page 84 that shows what is permitted. And then the setbacks are on page 85. And then on page 87 is a site plan, and I kind of just highlighted the general layout. It looks like Mr. Betchen kind of outlined the structures on the lots, 7 through 12. We may have to decrease the size of it to get the full picture on there. Bottom right corner, just above the blue line. Just above there and further right. Up, above all that. Now to the right. Further to the right. Oh, no, the actual column on the right. Oh, you're on the side of the, well, you get the idea. Technology is amazing. There we go, thank you. So there's the aerial view with the engineering overlay of the site plan showing, if you zoom in or get a copy of the PUD, you can see where the apartments would be replacing the ugly metal structure adjacent to the alley. And let's see, really the remaining documents are just details that we've already talked about. I don't have any further comments. The applicant is present if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mrs. Hilton. Is there any discussion, comments from the commissioners? No? All right, we'll go ahead and open the floor. If the applicant would wish to speak, go ahead and come forward. Please give your name and address.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commission. My name is Andrew Shank, 2727 East 21st Street. I am law partners with Ms. Cornett, and she was detained at another hearing this evening. As always, Ms. Hilton covered everything that I think needed to be covered. I wanted to give some additional context about the proposed use. The use is going to be for the Tulsa Girls Home, which is going to be providing a pretty important service for the community. The single-family residential home that will stay and is under renovations now will house 14 to 18-year-old girls that are in foster care system. But essentially, this service is filling the gap in the community. These aren't women with any records. These are just women that need foster home, they've been taken from abusive homes, and we just don't have enough foster homes for them. The max occupancy of the single-family residential will be 8 girls. The 4 additional dwelling units that will be on the southeast corner of the property after that storage unit has been demolished and removed, it'll be 3 single-bedroom townhouses, if you will, with parking underneath, and then 1 2-bedroom. Those houses will be transition houses after a girl reaches the age of 18. And so that, I believe we're going to house girls there from 19 to 21 years, and that has access from the alley there. An interesting fact about the history of the property, Marseille's correct. It was built in 1915. It was actually used as a boarding house originally. So it's a consistent use with the property. Some highlights from the PUD, as you all know in your experience, the PUD process is about give and take between the community and the developer. Here, the developer is committed to landscaping the property in excess of the code requirements. We've said that at least 30% of the site will be adequately landscaped and maintained. And the multifamily use is really limited to the site plan that's presented. I don't want anybody to think there's an apartment project that's going to be able to go up or anything like that. The density that's allowed under the code in a lot this size is about, we could put probably 21 units as a matter of right if it was straight multifamily rezoning, and that's not what's happening at all. It's the existing single-family residence in those 4 townhomes, again, 3 1-bedroom, 1 2-bedroom. Happy to answer any other questions you may have. I've got a representative from the Tulsa Girls Home here in Well, if you'd like to hear from her.
Thank you, Andrew. I do have a question about the structures that will be south of the main home that access from the alley. Those will have a garage, each of those will have a garage underneath? and then-
Underneath, where the car goes in.
And then access to those garages, I assume, is from the alley?
That's correct.
Okay.
That raises another good point. We also exceed the code requirements for parking. I think the code would require us to park 15 spaces. We've got 16. And in the regulations kind of governing the girls at the home, they're not allowed to have cars, the girls that are in a single-family home, until they reach the age of 18. So the parking that we have adequately covers the office use that exists today, and it will essentially be for staff at the home. That's one thing I wanted to drive home too. There will be a staff person present at the home 24/7. They don't live there, obviously, with the girls. It's trying to create that home environment for them, but there will be staff present 24/7.
Thank you. Any other questions for Andrew?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. This time, does anyone else from the audience wish to speak on this item? Yes, sir. Come on up, please. If you would, give your name and address. Sorry. Yeah, sir, we're going to try to limit comments. We do have a rather large agenda, so try to keep them to, yeah, try to keep them to 3 minutes, please.
My name's Aaron Morgan.
Thank
I
you.
live at 404 SB, just across Cedar from this property. There are two mailboxes on this property, but it's only listed as one address. I kind of think that's funny. I don't know why there's 2 mailboxes. It used to have 2 separate addresses, and now it has one address. Another thing is the renovations are complete. It looks almost complete, if not complete. I don't even know if the sale of the property is complete. Does anybody know if the sale is complete? On Zillow, it says withdrawn, or it did when I looked at it. I don't know what that means, but kind of curious is that we got the cart before the horse. We got the properties renovated and ready to go forward, and we don't know what's going on. There's a lot of questions about the property that I don't understand. The posting, the sign posting, was taken down before this meeting, so we've determined that everything is approved. The sign is taken down, and we don't know what the status of the property is. I mean, I don't know. I can't find out what the status of the property is. So I guess my main question is the property sold, and why the renovations were completed before we had this meeting? That's my question.
Thanks, sir. Yeah, let's get you back up at the end. There may be some more questions. Thank you very much. Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? All right. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Lori McLean, I live next door to him. We are an elderly, a lot of our community's elderly. We've lived there for a long time. And I want to know what kind of supervision they're going to have, because I have real experience with kids that have aged out of the foster system, and there have been some atrocities, and I want to know that my neighbors are safe. I want to know that I'm safe. So I want to know exactly what kind of supervision there's going to be. Are my elderly neighbors that aren't my age going to be safe? Because who's looking out for them if it's not us looking out for each other?
Thank you, Lori. Any other comments from the public? All right, I see no one. Aaron, would you like to, or I'm sorry, Andrew, would you like to come back up, please, and address those? If you-
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think if we scroll down maybe two more pictures, there's an even better site plan that kind of helps tell the story. I'll take those in order. The land transaction is closed about 90 days ago, so the property has changed hands. Renovations are not complete. They have been ongoing, and the only renovations that have happened are renovations that are allowed as a matter of right. Like the mini storage has not been torn down, no construction for any new buildings. It's just taking care of what we own and kind of working on that. So for the first question, I think that addresses those pieces. And again, with supervision, we'll have staff on site 24/7. I'm not sure if there's any better supervision than that, but we will have someone there 24/7 supervising all of the girls that are in foster care. Happy to answer any other questions.
I think it's probably a question for the postmaster, but 2 mailboxes for one property, I don't know.
I don't, my guess would be maybe the two uses, the residential use and the office use would be
Okay.
my guess.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and close the floor. Further discussion? All right, we'll go ahead and hear a motion for agenda item number 4.
I move that we approve JZ 23 PUD 147 for approval.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Let's vote, please.
Bors,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Nixon,
Yes.
West.
Yes. And item number 5 is JZ 23 PUD 146, request by Bell Land Use for a planned unit development and a zone change for the underlying zoning from AG agricultural to RS3 residential single family and CS commercial shopping at the general location of 131st Street and Elm. Mrs. Hilton, please.
Thank you, Chair West and Planning Commission. I will make a general statement that any items on tonight's agenda should appear on the next city council agenda, which will be scheduled as December 19th. Maybe look at my calendar so I can get it right. Okay, December 19th. So any items that require further approvals will be on the December 19th city council agenda, and that's for anything. Now, there's always a chance that that meeting could get canceled because it's very close to the holidays, but I don't expect that. I'm just kind of getting it out there that council approvals will move forward to the next meeting, and it should be on the 19th. So with that being said, this is a request, JZ 23 PUD 46, or 146. And this is a rezoning with a PUD overlay. So currently they're requesting to rezone from agriculture to commercial shop. That was not right. Yes, commercial shopping and RS3, sorry. Small panic. This, with the PUD overlay, the general location is north of 131st Street and west of Elm. I think, let me give you a good, page 95 will be perfect. And this item came to City Council December 5th with an annexation request, and City Council did grant this area to be annexed into the city of Jenks. So previously, it was in our fence line, but it was still in Tulsa County. So now it is part of the city of Jenks, and it is adjacent to the area that will be platted as 121 121st Elm Complex. So this one is directly south of there, just to kind of get your bearings. So the general area is in South Jenks, and the annexation was approved December 5th. The request that they have is to rezone with a PUD, and our zoning code, which is the Unified Development Ordinance, or UDO, requires any project greater than 20 acres that is a residential project to have a planned unit development on it. And so Mr. Bell has brought that to you today. In this particular PUD, there are 3 phases, and there are 2 phases with an RS3 zoning. Phase 1 is approximately 53 acres and requesting 53-foot lots. And Phase 2 is approximately 55 acres, which would be, the Phase 1 would be what is considered starter homes, but probably not right out of college starter homes. These seem like maybe a 2-person career starter home price level, so could be a little misleading. These are very nice homes is what I'm getting at. So Phase 2, approximately 55 acres, they are looking at luxury living with minimum maintenance, which is for the demographic in this area and across America in general, that is a very high demand product where people are wanting maximum amount of house on the smallest lot possible with the minimum amount of maintenance. The last piece is commercial, which would be commercial shopping with possibly a future amendment to ask for high-density residential. So this is a little bit different. I always like to congratulate Mr. Bell for thinking out of the box, and I mean that very sincerely. He tries to get his people across the finish line. And so tonight, we are discussing Phase 1. So Phase 2 and 3 will develop, but per our code, you have to have a site plan, and if you deviate from, there's like certain criteria that if you deviate, it requires a major amendment. So for the other residential portion and the commercial portion, they will come back with a major amendment at that time. So they did provide a PUD for the overall concept. So if you look on page, if you will go up to the one right before that, that would be great. Thank you, Tara. If you look on page 94, it shows the Phase 1, RS3, and the project area is, like I said, 43 acres. If you look at the zoning, they're not deviating from that. Lot width for an RS3 is allowed by right at 45, and so they are exceeding the code by requiring a 50-foot lot. The front lot setback for an RS3 is 20, and they are asking for a 25-foot setback. On the exterior side yards, the RS3 zoning requires 15 feet, and they are looking at 5 and 5. And then the rear yard stays the same as the code, as well as the height. And the impervious surface coverage is something I bring up every time we have a pre-development meeting because, well, I've said it before, one of the saddest things is when someone buys their dream home and can't build a pool. So, because they can't meet that impervious surface coverage, or, the really nice garage or gazebo. So, just saying. If you move on to page 95, it does show the zoning map for that area. It's adjacent to the Yorktown development, which are thousands of homes over there on the east side of Elm. And if you go to page 96, you can see, sorry, I did not actually draw it out for you. I like to give you the exact dimensions, but you can see that it's medium intensity single family plus high intensity single family and some local commercial on the hard corner. On page 97, it talks about what is a planned unit development and what you're looking for when you're reviewing it. And the Planning Commission is asked when they review it to either make a recommendation of approval, approve with modifications, or deny. and they go directly to the city council for approval. So with that being said, and before we get into the actual details, staff recommends conditional approval of the request for rezoning from ag to residential, RS3, and commercial shopping with the PUD 146 overlay detail for phase 1. It'll actually be for all of that, but I'm just letting you know that it specifically will move forward for phase 1. And the comments are follow the UDO and city code as related to oil and gas wells and drilling. That entire area has been drilled for I don't even know how long, and we have very plain development criteria for any type of drilling or oil wells. The code says they have to be identified, et cetera, and it tells you when you can drill and all of that. So that's just an FYI. There must be a residential collector running north and south, which connects with the 121st Elm Complex. Consider addressing accessory dwelling units in the private covenants. So that as a city, as a municipality, we allow per our code for a lot to have an accessory dwelling unit by right, but there are some subdivisions that don't allow it or don't want it, and just asking the applicant to decide in advance, is this something you're going to allow or not? Because if it's not restricted and someone comes to the city and asks for an accessory dwelling unit, I'm going to approve it because they have not restricted it. So just kind of letting them know that that could happen. And of course, follow the subdivision regulations, and then section 6 of the UDO lays out the additional details. So that's where it says plant trees here and how many trees and all of that. So on page 102 is the actual planned unit development. And again, this specifies for phase 1, and we already went through what you would see on 106, which are the development standards. I will point out that they have provided in their PUD that the minimum house size will be 1,400 square feet of finished heated living area. The first floor is 100% masonry, not including windows, of course, and beneath covered porches. No steel, aluminum, or plastic siding shall be provided on any building or residential lot. The foundations cannot be exposed, and it talks about the interior fencing and screening. You keep going, it talks about the comprehensive plan, the utilities and stormwater. And for our purposes tonight, this is a rezoning and a planned unit development, so we will not be diving into the water or utilities in this. That's handled through the engineering. This is simply a question of, is this a good place for this size of home and this type of product, residential product? The comprehensive plan says, yes, it is. If you look on page 113, he's added the comprehensive plan. Page 112 is kind of the layout. So phase 1 should look very, very close to what you see on that drawing. And there's a blue line that runs through from 100, probably beyond 121st Street, and kind of diagonally across all of these properties. So we know Mr. Betchen and Mr. Bell are working really diligently with their clients to provide to meet all the requirements of the UDO and provide the solutions that we have requested. So as it is, this does all of that, plus protects the blue line. There could be a little bit of deviation from what you see in phase 2, and then phase 3 will certainly come back for a major amendment. And that is it. Staff does recommend approval. If you look on the very last page, it shows you the subject tract, and that is on page 116 of 156. Thank you, Tara. I am happy to try and answer questions. The applicant is present. If I cannot answer them, they are more than capable of answering the questions.
All right, any questions from the commission for Mrs. Hilton or discussion? No, Greg? Craig, good? All right, if the applicant is present, if you would come forward and give us your name, address, and everything you know about this.
Well, not everything, I'm awake. Chairman, members of the commission, thank you very much. My name is Robert Bell. My address is 101 East Aquarium Place in Jenks. I think this is exciting to get this. This property was difficult, and even the city had run into the difficulties related to the fact that it was in the Indian tract at that point. Bureau of Indian Affairs was involved in this. It took them 2.5 years to get this to closing. During that time, the city couldn't even get the right-of-way necessary for the Elm Street project. And so once the current owners had obtained ownership and was able to close it, they immediately gifted that right-of-way that was necessary for the Elm Street project to the city. And so that was helps move the entire city and the entire plans forward at that point. I wanted to note that in the code, it allows you to make some alterations to the comp plan to meet what the natural characteristics of the property is at that point. And if we could go to, I think it was 96. So we see in the far southeast corner of this property that pink area is the commercial, and that's probably about 10 acres. The orange coming across above that is designated by the comp plan as a high-density single-family residential type development. That's 7-8 dwellings, maybe more per acre at that point. So, and if we can go to the layout of the, which I think is the one before this. One before that, maybe. I would have never found it. So the applicant has, instead of trying to recapture the ground and make it usable, took some of the water features that are on this property and created what is a large detention facility along Elm Street. So some of the neighbors that are over in the Yorktown development, what they're going to be looking at is more of a water feature at that point, and a pond and creeks, and that is why there was also some fencing requirements in the PUD to specify, so we allow that we don't block this off. This still becomes amenity to the city at that point. But because of that, you can see there's not an access point. Because of that, the water feature, there's not a second access point along Elm Street at that, and that was a problem. And so we extended the road all the way to 131st, and the residential development on the back side that was in the comp plan to be commercial and high-density residential. So the single-family residential development goes all the way to 131st with an access road, and that road actually benefits because it works as the collector street that's needed for that area and future development in the future. So I just wanted to kind of acclimate everybody to the way that's laid out at that point and the purpose of that. As Ms. Hilton said, it was, this first phase is, I would call it Jenks starter homes. They're probably around $350,000. The second phase in there is a higher end type scenario at that point. We don't know, and we historically, we've always had issues with trying to get the commercial areas, especially down south, as we're waiting for development to transpire, to build out. So we don't really know what that layout is or who that user is. We know that the comp plan has called for a higher density residential. There was a need for financing and infrastructure issues that we get this zoned the proper way or zoned where it has some higher value. We lean towards going to the commercial and putting the commercial over all of it at that point. And then we were very specific that we need to look at what the comp plan is calling for, a higher density residential. What that is, we don't know, but there's a proper development to go along with what we know is a commercial, and we'll bring that back forward to you in the future. The phase two is going to be, I think, move more fast. I know the buyer, I know who the user is, and I know their product, and I think it will be a welcome product in the city of Jenks. So if you got any questions of me, I don't know. There's a lot to this. We've talked to the neighbors on the other side of the Blue Line stream, some of the properties that come off of Elwood at that point. They don't want us to restrict the water. They still want water to their farm ponds, and we're working through that. There's some solutions that I think are beneficial to all parties that could be reached, and we'll have to bring that all back with the infrastructure at that point when we get that far.
Thank you, Robert. Craig, you got a question?
Robert, if this gets approved tonight and it gets approved at city council, when do they break ground and actually start making this a subdivision?
I think you're probably looking within the phase one's gonna happen fairly quick, but when I say fairly quick, I'd say within the year, so.
So just to be clear, like, you're thinking in the spring or fall or winter?
It would probably be maybe, I would say maybe spring 2025. The engineering process is gonna take a little while. So, yeah, I can't imagine moving dirt anytime in calendar year 2024.
Okay. I just asked because I know we're going to start widening Elm and was trying to figure out how that all worked together.
And I understand. So I've talked to the neighborhoods the best I could, some of the people that I was aware of and some of the issues. And that seemed to be the highest concern is the traffic. It's hard for a city to plan for 2 times a day. And I think that the plans are in place. I think that we helped facilitate moving that forward by the gifting of the right-of-way. And I think that will be moving forward. But I think that will be moving forward at that point. There's some court cases. Is traffic injurious to neighborhoods? And I'm not sure that the concern is to recognize it. We're moving it forward, but less impact as possible by the start in the 2025 timeframe. But the roads need to get done, and they'll get done. But it's not. I don't think it falls on the development or that point. I don't think it's a characteristic that is injurious to the neighborhoods.
Greg, any questions?
Yeah, Robert, a couple questions. Are you planning this to be a phased development? Get phase one pretty much done and then start on phase two and ultimately phase three? Or is it all gonna kind of go, assuming it all gets approved, that it all goes up at the same time?
So what we're approving tonight is phase one at that point. I do know that there's a purchaser for phase two. And he is using another engineering firm locally, and they're putting together their own PUD, and so they'll come back as a major amendment to that, and they'll have their own timeframes. And that, I think the longest phase in there is the commercial, because it's harder for us to get commercial, because it wants the rooftops in place before it comes. So I think that's a little longer timeframe. But I think phase one and phase two will ultimately be close to the same time.
So you're looking at max, in phase one, what's the population density that you're anticipating being in there? How many units, and then?
Yeah, I think there was only like 50 to 60 lots.
Okay.
55 lots
Okay.
is shown on that
Okay.
design. Phase two's not a lot more than that. Phase two is more of a larger house, higher quality house on smaller lots with I think the intent is more your empty nester type deal, where they can have homeowners association. It'll probably be gated, so they can have more control on the land. That's the kind of setup.
Okay. My concern is with Jenks West Elementary in the intermediate, and how many more students we're gonna be loading into those two areas of our school district, because that seems to be where the growth is right now. And it just continues to put stress on that organization to try to house the students. If we have a couple hundred more kids coming in there, then I wonder, have you had any conversation with the school district and this impact it would have on it?
I think that's Glenpool School District in there.
It is.
Okay.
It's Glenpool? Okay, I stand corrected. I assumed it was Jenks because it's in the Jenks city.
And your question was a good question, but the school's aware of the available lands and plan that in their Uber developments that they did back 10 years ago at that point. And so that was kind of designed into their system, just a thought.
Okay.
Amy? All right. Thank you, Mr. Bell.
It is Glenpool School Districts, and I believe Jenks School District just updated their comprehensive plan for their school system last year. It could be wrong on that, but I know that they were going through the process. They always contact the planning department. They look at the comprehensive plan. They know the maximum density that would be allowed by right in each of the areas that are vacant. So they take all of that into account when they do their plans.
All right. Are there other members of the public who wish to address this item? Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
My name is Janet Gilden Galarza. I live on 131st Street. I've lived there 41 years. I'm not sure I understood exactly what he was saying about the roads and the infrastructure regarding traffic. I do know that when Kimberly Clark came in, their water line goes across the front of my property, and I will guarantee you the traffic is horrible, and the trash is phenomenal. My husband and I pick up the trash west to Elwood, and you'd be surprised how much trash is thrown out. Also, I think that a neighbor who could not be here today has spotted bald eagles in the area. And I think, as you know, he mentioned the waters, and we all know that bald eagles nest around water. And I think it would be incumbent upon you all to do a study to make sure there are no bald eagles, because they are a protected class. Okay? And I am agricultural. I went through the Department of Ag to get mine certified as a farm. I will continue to be farm. Like I said, I've lived there 41 years. There's always sometimes pushback when your roosters crow and stuff like that, so just be aware, it's not going to change.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? Roosters crow and dogs bark. Anyone else on this item? Oh, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Amy Barnes. I live at 13152 South Norfolk, so I live just south of the development. And my question is more to, I don't know if you can speak to the expansion. That is one of my main concerns. And it's, if you live out there, it's not just twice a day, like rush hour time. We have a 2-lane street, as you know, no turn lane, and no turn signals at 131st in Peoria Elm. So the traffic congestion is kind of maxed out at this point. So what is the time frame for the expansion on the street from 121st to 131st?
I'm probably not the guy to ask.
Me either, but
I have heard that it's going to start sometime next year, I believe, so.
I mean, so
They're
my
gonna
main concern
expand Elm to 131st pretty soon,
Right.
but I don't know exactly.
But bringing in a potential 110-ish homes, say you have on average 2 cars per home, it's just further it is, if you all aren't driving that street, you really need to go out and look to see how far it is backed up morning and night. You can't get where you need to go in a timely manner. It is a standstill. So it would be nice if we could get the expansion on the street pushed up before the housing developments come in. I don't know if anyone can
that would be
speak to
ideal,
that.
no doubt.
Well, I think that's why I asked, because if he does start it in 2025, maybe it will be done by then, but I don't know for
Right.
sure.
Okay.
You say there's no signaling at 131st and Elm?
There's signaling. We do not have a turn signal. So from all the traffic coming out of Yorktown,
Gotcha.
driving from the east to west, and I'm sitting at that signal trying to head south, there, you can sit through 2 or 3 stoplights. And then
Gotcha.
you're forced to kind of take a chance and run out into the intersection just to get on the street. It is very dangerous. I know they're looking at changing that, but again, we haven't been told when. There are no timeframes.
Yeah.
So,
The city website, the engineer posts the updates on road expansion projects, so you can go to jinx.gov.
okay.
Jinx.org, and you can find the timelines and all the information from the engineering department. This piece was the last actual right-of-way we needed for the expansion, so this piece alone has probably held it up over a year, just starting the whole process. We do have to wait on other utilities to relocate, so I think PSO has been in the process of relocating. You have to deal with ONG and the other utility companies, so even though I say that this piece held it up, probably in reality it didn't fully hold it up, but all that information, the city engineer keeps it available for the public, yeah.
Okay.
And then if you don't find what you want, feel free to email me or the city engineer, and he'll get you that information.
Okay.
But-
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Yes, ma'am, would you like to speak?
I don't know how to turn it off.
Okay, I am
There we go.
Kathleen. I don't know if you,
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
okay, I am Kathleen Maddox. I live right next door to Amy, who just spoke. And I had heard that there was, 13153 South Norfolk. Okay.
Thank you.
I had heard that there was some kind of pollution in this whole section that you're talking about. Is that a true thing, or is that just a rumor that there's brown stuff or wells or whatever out there?
I can answer that.
You can or can't?
I can.
You can, good. Because I've heard the same thing for 50 years.
So, north of 121st, directly north of all of this, where they have the mini storage and the fire station, and I think the Curtin Drug is going in, and then they have some warehouse uses. That area, I'm assuming excluding the fire station, but I can't speak for that, is it has a deed restriction, and you cannot have habitable structures, so you cannot build homes there. Everything south of 121st has been cleared for residential development through the EPA and whatever powers that be. They
Okay.
have been cleared.
Okay, so they've gotten rid of the brownness.
They'll have
Pollution, whatever it is.
right, so the city does not regulate any of that. It has nothing to do with the city of Jenks. What happens in a development, the engineer of record has to go through all of those processes. And they have to make sure that there are no bald eagles. They have to make sure that there are no beetles or whatever. And they have to make sure that the EPA signs off on it. So that's all handled on the private side. We don't regulate bald eagles or beetles or oil wells. We have our own regulations if you want to drill, but if it's a brownfield, is that what they're called? If it's that type of a site, we don't regulate that. That's done through the state or the feds as applicable.
So,
So
nobody-
what we're talking about is just zoning. So tonight's case is a zoning question, and if they can't solve their brownfield problems, then they never get to build. If there are bald eagles and the EPA or whoever, I don't know which organization it is, but if they say there's bald eagles, then they have to go through all that criteria, and that's all done outside of the city of Jenks.
okay,
So we don't require those studies, but other organizations do. And their engineer of record will go through every one of those steps on their side.
okay, okay. Well, it can happen, I guess, if it's not caught.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Anyone else wish to speak on this item? All right, we'll go ahead and close the floor, have further discussion or a motion.
I just have a comment that I too do live on that street and I do travel that traffic, so I'm aware of what you're talking about. And we've talked about the estimated start dates, but back to the applicant, curious on what the estimated completion date of phase one would be.
I can speak to that. Do I need to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mark McGuire, 35093 West 191st Street South, Bristow, Oklahoma. We're part of the development team and also the engineering and the construction. So we'll be doing the engineering on phase one and phase three, and the construction for sure for phase one and hopefully other phases out there. But anyways, in saying that, yeah, I anticipate starting dirt work, tail end of 2024, beginning of 2025, that the process should take 8-9 months. So that would kick it in towards the end of 2025. And then, but then at that point, you just have empty lots with the street. The homes then would start coming in, and I really can't speak to how long it takes to build a home. Some people probably know better than I would. I don't know, 4 or 5 months for a home. So you're looking at, I would anticipate before anybody can actually move into anything in phase one residential or phase two residential for that matter, because they're kind of on a similar track as we are, I would anticipate 2.5 years, give or take, would be my guess. So.
Thank you.
All right, is there a motion on item number 5? Does this need to be two separate motions for the zone change and the PUD? They're combined, okay, thank you.
I would make a motion to approve JZ 23 PUD 146.
I'll second that. Let's vote, please.
Bors,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Stevens, Nixon,
Yes.
and West.
Yes. Agenda item number 6 is JZ 23688. It's a request by Charles Crow for a zone change from an AG agricultural to a CS commercial shopping, general location 424 West 111th Street. And before we start this item, is the applicant, Mr. Crow, present tonight? No, sir. No, the applicant is not present on item 6. It's up to my fellow commissioners, but I would suggest considering a continuance of this item, since the applicant is not able to be present tonight. I don't know that we would get all of our answers or questions answered, but that's up for discussion. Any thoughts on that?
I have a couple of questions, so I too would like to see a continuance.
Greg?
I think it's only fair to the applicant to have, so that he would have his opportunity to address the commission. So I would move that we take JZ 23688 and continuance to the next session of the Planning Commission.
I'll second that. Let's vote, please.
Bors,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Nixon,
Yes.
West.
Yes. Item number 7 is JZ 23 PUD 98, MA3, a request by Alan Betchen for approval of a major amendment number 3 to PUD 98 to allow for automotive uses and a change in the material requirements, general location 313 South Franklin. Mrs. Hilton?
Thank you, Chair West and Planning Commission. I'm going to talk really slow on this because there's a lot of pieces. And I'm going to let you know in advance, there are 2 items that you'll be voting on. So this request is for 2900 West Main, and some people call it Gateway. It is not Gateway, but it is adjacent to Gateway. So the request number 1 is approval of a major amendment number 3 to PUD 98 for lots 11, 12, 13, and 16, and approval of a rezoning from commercial shopping to commercial general, which is lots 11, 12, and part of 13. Now, I will tell you, if you have no inclination to approve the rezoning, then you would not need to approve the PUD because the PUD is contingent upon the rezoning. So at the time of vote, I don't remember how Brandon had it laid out. I think he put the rezoning second accidentally. So we'll vote on number 8 first, and then number 7. So in order for the PUD to approved, we need the commercial general zoning on lots 11, 12, and part of 13. So that's probably clear as mud. If you want to, let's see, Tara, let's go to page 130, gives you the overall general area. Perfect, thank you. So 2900 West Main has been developing for a number of years. There was originally approximately 58 undeveloped acres with 19 lots and 2 blocks. Since that time, we had a couple, O'Reilly's came in last year. I think we have service station use, and then we have SoCo. And then last year, major amendment number 2 was approved, and that was to allow for a hospital use. And I can, that was March of 2023, and that allowed for, there were multiple lots all the way from Main Street and then down to lot part of the middle and part of the edge. So anyway, I have a picture later we can look at, but that was major amendment number 2 for hospital use, and there were several things that were amended during that time. So major amendment number 3, this is a request. This request is 2 parts, and it's going to require 2 votes, and we're going to vote on number 8 first and number 7 second. So the original request is the rezoning of lots 11, 12, and part of 13. So if you're looking at that map, there's a large, if you look, you have Adams Street on the east, you have Franklin on the west, and then you have what's basically called 101st on the south. So lot 13 is that southwest corner, and part of that is under contract to be purchased and may have already been purchased, but part of that we lot split a few weeks ago. I don't know if y'all remember that, but lot 13 was lot split. So everything to the east was going with lots 11 and 12, and to the west was a separate owner. So the major amendment the rezoning is for part of 13, all of 11, and all of 12. And they're asking for commercial shopping to be rezoned to commercial general with very specific language. So this would be for a concept that is membership-based and provides the following services. If approved, they would be allowed to have storage of, so let me state that it's very specific because it's for rare, exotic, or collector automobiles. So that's not O'Reilly's or a tire shop or something like that. This is a very high-end facility, and it's a very specific language that they're requesting to be adopted. The uses, if approved, will provide storage of vehicles, light mechanical work, detailing, events, indoor automotive sales by appointment only, and automobile consignment. So the second portion of the amendment is to the architectural standards for 2900. So this is the second vote. So this is actually, number 1 would be the rezoning to allow for commercial general, because commercial shopping, as our UDO is written, does not allow for these automotive uses. And then the second one is an amendment to amend the architectural standards for 2900, and the plat would be amended, and that is specifically for the following. So the current language for architectural standards states all commercial buildings with the project shall be constructed of 75% masonry on all exterior faces. Now, we're going to pull in for the amendment. It's not only lots 11, 12, and 13, but there's also an amendment that would be part of this request for lot 16. And I want to talk about that for just a minute. So in 2017, lot 16 was platted separate from the balance of 2900 West Main PUD 98 and was developed as a gymnasium. So it's been in operation since 2017, 18. I don't know when they actually opened. During that time, the structure was built and approved and received a temporary CO, but did not meet the PUD requirements of the 75% masonry on all exterior faces. Since that time and before I was at the City of Jenks, which has been 4 years almost, they appealed and asked council to consider amending the PUD. There's been hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of dialogue about lot 16. So fast forward, now we have an interesting use for part of lot 13, 11, and 12. And they brought a rendering, and I was like, wow, that's amazing, but that doesn't meet the PUD requirements, which is 75% masonry on all facade faces, the exterior of all faces. So, excuse me, I asked the applicant to go back to the ownership and to all the neighbors So I did not make this task easy for the clients or the applicant. I just said, if we are going to move this forward, we really need to take care of Lot 16, because how can we have this non-conforming architectural facade on all these other lots, but not really address this one? So with much due diligence and many more hours of conversation between the owners, the owner groups, the sellers, the buyers, the landowners, and city staff, and back again, and over and under and through the woods, we all went many times, and we got here tonight. So, with that being said, the proposed language as presented in the PUD would, and I'm here on page 129, B, and this is for lot 16. As it is written, it says, exception to 75% masonry on all exterior faces is requested to be amended as follows. Development Area A per PUD 98. So I'm telling you that lot 16 is in Development Area A as I understand it. SoCo was built in 2017, and I highlighted in blue number 3. The minimum masonry requirement on lot 16 shall be reduced to the amount on the building as currently constructed. So this would be the new language, and starts on number 3. In the event the SoCo building is raised, and that's with a Z, and new construction is proposed on lot 16, all such new construction shall conform to the original 75% minimum masonry requirement of PUD 98. So I felt like that was fair. It clears up their request. It allows them to continue to exist, but if that building was ever torn down, then they would have to comply with the 75% masonry on lot 16. So in addition to that, applying to lot 11, 12, and 13 only, it would state all exterior facades that directly abut and face a public right-of-way will be constructed of no less than 75% masonry, except those facades facing south toward Pole Creek, which shall either, so they have two options. If you are along that 101st Street and your building has a facade that faces 101st Street, you either comply with the 75% masonry, or your building can be constructed of durable materials and include variations in height, articulation, material, color, and similar to those proposed in the PUD 98 Major Amendment Number 3 document called Conceptual Rendering. And below that it says, this amendment provides more architectural freedom while protecting the development quality of the project and the city of Jenks. And number 2, it states, current 2900 West Main ownership supports the amendment. And in addition, it says all add regulations to be added to PUD 98 Amendment Number 3, which would require anyone building transition or require the automotive use to apply transition C regulations from the UDO regarding landscaping, and that would be directly applied to lots 10, between lots 10 and 14 of the proposed project. And I have an illustration later in the staff report that talks about that. So the next thing that you see is, I just summarized hospital use for Major Amendment Number 2. I did reach out to the hospital ownership, and they said they had no objection. We had Sarah Coling, who owns and operates the pediatric Speech and Beyond, and she has visited many, many, many times with the automotive use owners, and they have, I believe, received her approval as well. So request number 1, approve Major Amendment Number 3 to PUD 98 for exclusive automotive assembly uses and amend the facade requirements for the specific lots. And in this case, it would be lot 11, 12, 13, and 14. And it's all of 13. I wrote in here part of 13, but I've marked through that, and I'll correct it for City Council as this moves forward. And then approve rezoning to CG with PUD 98 Amendment Number 3, and that is for lots 11, 12, and 13.
On that first part, you said 11, 12, 13, and 14. I think you meant 16.
Oh, and 16, you're right. There is no 14.
So
Thank
11,
you.
12, 13, and 16.
Yes. So, again, on page 130 is the overall zoning map. You can see that it's commercial shopping, and we are looking to rezone the portion owned by the automotive uses to commercial general. No other commercial general uses would be allowed. It's specific to this development, this use. So they can't come in with a tattoo parlor or any of the uses other than this. This is it. So, let me see here. JZ 23, PUD 98, Major Amendment Number 3. Staff recommends approval of Major Amendment Number 3 to allow for automotive uses. One thing I did not speak about, and that is, in addition to automotive uses, assembly uses were previously not allowed in commercial shopping, but we did, when we updated the code, begin to allow commercial shopping or assembly uses in commercial shopping through the specific use permit process. And they wanted to be able to have automotive events, et cetera. So that is also, they actually have designed an event space in this. And then number 2, JZ 23689 is a request to rezone lots 11, 12, and part of 13 to allow for the automotive uses. And I think I'm not going to go through anything else because that pretty well sums it all. There's many more pages, but we're going to be done unless you have a question.
Well, thank you for tackling this. This, as you stated, has been going on for 5 years and back and forth. And the way I understand it, this will, for the long term, take care of the 75% masonry issue on SoCo, correct? Yay. Good job. All right, Greg, Amy, any questions about this?
I'm just trying to get a little clarity on the lot 12. I don't know why it's, maybe I'm looking right at it on this, or maybe it's from that lot split, but I'm just wanting to make sure I'm fully understanding where the lots are located. What page do I need to be looking at? 147. Okay, thank you.
So, this is one of those.
But I don't see 12.
It's
So-
on the next page. So this is the actual plat, and part of 13 and 12 is on the next page of the plat.
So it's down at the little tail.
It's that back corner, or the tail of that
Yeah.
13 plus
It's
12.
the intersection of 101st and Adams.
Okay, I think I got it now. I just couldn't quite put that together
I'm
in my
sorry,
mind.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I think if you look on page 1, the page before that, go up one more. There we go, that one, yeah.
Yeah, I got it now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Greg, any questions?
A couple, one of them, I'm not as familiar with SoCo as others in here, but I guess my question is why, would there be a reason why we couldn't require them to finish that so it's 75% facade, so it all's alike when they get, rather than waiting to see if maybe possibly they tear it down sometime in the future and then they have to be in compliance, would be my first question.
That has been part of the ongoing conversation, and for many reasons, it just is not practical, and this is the best solution that we have found in moving forward, is to grant them relief, since we are already granting relief to everyone else adjacent to them on the south.
Okay. My other question, when you talk about automotive uses, you said light detailing and some other things. Are they gonna be doing, or do you know? Painting, those kinds of things that have emissions, be collecting liquids and things like that on this site so that we don't have a polluted site when they get done with working on cars in there that would keep us from being able to reuse this at some point down the road.
The code does not allow for painting.
Okay.
Let's see where that would be.
Craig, anything at this point? Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and open the floor. Is the applicant present? Thank you for patiently waiting.
That's under
Alan Betchen, 200 North
Auto body
McKinley in
repair,
Sand Springs.
and
We're
they're not
the
asking for
engineer
that.
for the project. I won't belabor it because Ms. Hilton did a great deal of effort trying to explain what's going on. This is kind of a clean, partially a cleanup amendment for the problem that has been SoCo for some period of time. It also represents kind of the tail end of the development. Some of the original concepts were trying to protect what the potential uses would be behind them, and knowing what it is. Now we're looking at kind of the last phase of this project, and we can kind of put a bow on it and define the project as a whole. The only reason we're asking for the CG is to grant us the automotive-related uses, mainly car sales. That is by appointment only and only interior. So this isn't a car lot where you're gonna have a PA system or anything that's obnoxious or to the surrounding neighborhood. The rest of the uses are by right or by special exception. The assembly this is a membership auto club, so they want to be able to rent out their facility, and that technically qualifies an assembly use. The detailing is really incidental to washing cars that are stored there, so don't think of it as anything kind of noxious. It's not anything more grand than that. But we're trying to be very specific about what's included in there, so there's not any question about what we're authorizing. The thrust of this is that everything that you see from the outside, when we have all these interior buildings that are self-focused, the necessity for creating that masonry requirement, because you don't ever see it unless it's interior, doesn't really have the same public benefit that it does as from the surrounding properties, essentially the streets that you abut. This creates a very unified approach to everything from SoCo and the existing development south. That's why we're creating that buffer in that transition area, so that anything north of that is still fully adhering to all the regulations that are there, so that you're really protecting the corridor as it has. The facade that's proposed is not a blank metal building. There's a rendering in your packet. It is an attractive looking project. The intent is just saying it's 75% masonry doesn't allow for those kind of unique architectural finishes is what we're asking for. And that's why we specifically limit to it. It's going to either meet the code or it's going to be as it's shown. There is no middle ground of coming in and trying to water that down. So it's trying to be very protective of that. This is kind of that southern end and finishing out of the project, other than what is the hospital. The ownership group for the overall development, as well as these individual property owners, have met, and they are all in support of it, and we would ask you to pass this forward to City Council with your support. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
All right, any questions for Alan?
So is this a new concept, or is this a proven concept?
In other parts of the country, this is the first time it's done in the metro. There's things that are similar to it, like aspects of it. So car storage, high-end car storage is a thing. Maybe some of the car automotive community type things are a thing, but this is actually consolidating all those uses in one. There are other places in the country where it's been done, but it's not been done consolidated in the Tulsa area that I'm aware of.
So if this doesn't go good, then we could have just a regular car dealership there?
Absolutely not, because the restrictions are still saying that it's interior by appointment only, so you cannot.
So that's what the restrictions say.
They're written specifically into the zoning amendment as it's presented, so that way there's no potential for that coming back and you getting something you didn't bargain for.
And we're aware of that there's 30 kids that drive this street every day, twice a day, that are high schoolers?
That is known to the buyer, yes, sir. This is not intended to be a heavily frequented use. It's think of it as almost a club. There's portions, the best analogy I've been able to come up with is kind of what has happened at the airport with some of the hangar type uses where it becomes kind of almost man cave oriented. It creates a community around that airfield at Jones. Same kind of thing in the car community and being able to do it in a setting like this.
At Jones, it's gated and you can't get in or
And
out.
so is this.
But my fear is a kid's driving, I don't know what these cars are like, but a kid's driving around the corner and makes a mistake and hits one of these cars. Don't that kind of ruin their life?
I would.
Because if they only have minimal insurance, then
And I mean, if we start chasing that piece out, that's as likely to happen anywhere else at an intersection.
is there going to be any fences between you and Speech and Beyond?
Yes. So the transition zone is specifically laid out as described in this. And it's, we referenced the code because it gave something that you can measure against, but that's the highest level of essentially screening between two uses. And that would otherwise not be required by this use from that use, because they're based on zoning.
And it's going to look like this?
Yes, sir.
You promise?
That
It's
is,
going to look this nice?
that is actually the renderings of the project as
You're going to have this many bushes along the front of it and make it just look spectacular.
spectacular is the intent, yes, sir. With the level of product.
I
that's to be
understand.
stored here,
I would
that's the
figure-
necessity of what they're trying to do.
I would figure it would be, but I mean,
I mean, to
I'm
be-
still nervous about the kids driving in and out of there twice a day and hitting one of these cars, and then what happens to the kid?
That there are some things that, whether that, so retreat to the engineer side of this response, because this is the easier way. There's a standard that we have to adhere to, and we can't protect against every possible thing that happens, but this is a reasonable expectation for what we're presenting. And I don't think any undue risk compared to other places in town. Kind of.
I mean, you got maybe 150 high-end cars where you don't have that in all the rest of
Tulsa. But I don't, the frequency, I mean, this is a storage facility, so, get the concept of what it is it's not high-end cars just traversing in and
Yeah.
out at all times.
They don't even drive them if there's a chance of rain.
There's-
Literally.
Yeah,
They don't
that
get
is
out.
part of the aspect of this. And there are parts of town that I would be more worried about that than I would at the corner of this, to be honest, for density and student traffic versus what the cost of car that is frequenting it.
50% of those kids are boys.
I have one. I am painfully aware of what you're saying.
Any other questions for Alan?
So are you saying the border has the black vinyl chain fence with the evergreen screen? Is
So-
that to where the other businesses are facing?
Yes.
Like the
So if you-
speech?
The speech building, the speech therapy is at lot 10, so that's abutting to the north.
Okay,
And we treated the same, so there's continuity along that entire line, which essentially aligns with the south line of SoCo. And that's why we were specific about saying if SoCo came down, it needed to conform with what all the other standards were that were surrounding it, because it's on the north side of that protected visual barrier line, because we're not trying to implement a new barrier on the north side of SoCo. And whether that's right or wrong, hear me tell you, as one of the people who has been involved in that thing from the beginning, this is the best end, and we need to find an end
Yes.
to the SoCo issue. I mean, just being very honest.
and just elaborate just a little bit more on like the membership and the events, like what kind of events and what kind of crowd can you expect type of situation?
The actual, the operators here, and I think
Okay.
that would be best answered from
Yeah,
them.
just
to
because
give you
I
kind of
haven't
the
seen this
concept of that.
before and I don't really know that I understand everything for this.
He was doing a great job. Leonard McCullough, 2767 East 45th Place in Tulsa. Let me go back to the last question. You were talking about an event. So when we traveled the country looking at similar concepts, like Alan said, no one's really put it all together the way that we have, but there are dozens of similar places like this, very high end. I mean, you know, places that have $100 million worth of cars in a building. We're not going to be quite at that level, obviously, but you'd be surprised how many car collectors there are in the Tulsa area. But what they all regretted is that they didn't build out an event center. They kind of had a little bit of room for events, and they said, man, if I'd known so many people wanted to host, whether it's a luncheon or a dinner or anything short of a wedding, we're not going to do weddings or anything like that, but you know, anything in the 15 to 150 person range, a lot of people want to have these events where they can look at amazing cars, kind of like going out to the Route 66 Museum, if you've ever been out there, or even like a car show. So we really wanted to build that in and create this sense of community. So it could be anything that you know, whether it's a holiday party or a conference or even, you know, I don't know what's going to eventually end up, whether there's going to be a hospital there or not, but we thought, you know, you might want to bring in some doctors and present new products, but they like to look at cars and things like that. So it would be those types of events. Specifically that address your concern about the kids, which we spoke extensively with Ms. Coling about that and came to an agreement, and she actually supported our project in the end. So we feel very good about it, and really, as far as I understand, I've been out there on Fridays. I think she's closed on Fridays. We anticipate most of our traffic, so to speak, being there on the weekends. So this isn't really a thing. We're probably going to be closed. I mean, you could still access your car on Monday or Tuesday, but we don't even envision being open in the beginning of the week when there's a lot of traffic. So
I'm not referencing Miss Coling.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you were
There's a
talking
Jenks
about,
FFA barn back there.
I
and
got you. Yeah, I've seen
kids
that
go
as
there
well, so.
Saturday, Sunday, snow, rain.
Gotcha, yeah. Well, the other good thing is I think a lot of people might turn out the other direction, but I will say a lot of these places we visited, most of the cars I went around and looked at hadn't moved in 5 years. So this is really a place where all the cars have a battery tender. We'll move them forward and move them backward a little bit to make sure there's no flat spots on the tires. If someone wants to come get their car once a year, twice a year, we'll have it ready for them, so it's a full concierge service. But this is not a high-traffic type environment at all. It's really a collector's club where people can get together, talk about their cars, and look at them, but they're going to be looking at them 95% of the time and maybe driving them 5% of the time. So, and we're one of the things we mentioned with Ms. Coling, though, is we're totally fine working with the city on paying for signs that say kids at play or reduced speed limits or anything that helps with the traffic in that area. We'd be amenable to do that.
Thank you for answering that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Mr. McCullough, what's the, it's probably in here, I didn't see it. What's the size, the square footage of the event center portion of this? Or is it part of where the cars are kept? I mean,
Well,
is there-
it's attached to the end of it, so I think the event center would probably stand maybe 3,000 square feet. 3,300.
Okay,
Yeah. Oh, just the event center portion. The whole big building is about 33,000 square feet. Yeah, but the event
about
center is
3,000.
3,000.
And parking is based off of the square footage of the event
It
center?
is. Yeah,
And we
we've
meet-
got
and we
more
meet
than
that
enough
standard?
parking for what we would be hosting.
Okay.
At least that's what my experts tell me. Yeah, yeah. We'd be happy to check on that, so.
All right.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Just one more comment to you. I'd make sure that you had the parking done before it got to city council. Because that will be a question they ask.
That'd be a question we're asking. Does anybody else from the public audience wish to speak on this agenda item? All right, we will go ahead and close the floor. And further discussion, let's start in with the parking.
If it was 3,000 exactly, it would require 75, and they have 71, so they're very close. I don't think they'll have any problem getting the parking.
Okay, they've got 71. Okay, I would, and I would agree with Craig. I'd make sure and have those exact numbers for
I just did the
next week.
math and he said 71, and if it was literally just 3,000, if the actual space is 3,000, it would be 1 per 40 square feet. So that'd be 75. So if it's less than 3,000, then they've already met it. If it is 3,000, then I'm sure they can come up with 3 more spaces somewhere. The building, yeah,
33,000, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And they'll probably, I'm guessing it's some type of shared parking based on the times of and uses.
All right, further discussion or motion on the zoning first, I believe.
Mine's probably just a comment that I think it's a super cool concept. I don't
Me
know,
too.
I'm not super familiar with the traffic going through there, so I can't speak to that. But I do think the high-end concept and the cars, I think I'm somewhat familiar with the following in Tulsa, and I think it's a really cool idea.
I like it too. I am somewhat familiar with that community, and they do a fabulous job with everything. The detail that goes into restoring those cars and keeping them, I don't have any concern about them, about their building.
I think it's great too. I'm just concerned about the kids, and at 718, I had Alan guarantee that it would look just like this. So I'm good too.
I would make a motion that we approve JZ 23689. Isn't that the first one that we're doing?
Correct.
Okay.
Second.
Let's vote, please.
Bors,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Nixon,
Yes.
and West.
Yes. And then a motion on the PUD.
Motion to approve JZ 23 PUD 98 dot MA3.
Second.
Bors,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Nixon,
Yes.
West.
Yes. And other business, Mrs. Hilton, do we have any planning updates?
We're very busy at the city of Jenks. My update. I am very busy at the city of Jenks.